So, a lot of things happened over this last weekend during America's 250. So, 4th of July weekend, a lot of stuff happened. There's a lot of stories I could cover, and honestly, I would like to cover several different stories, but fortunately, because of the brevity of the show, I just can't talk about everything, And I try to keep the episode short, so I gotta pick one topic, two at the most. And I like to talk about the World Cup, for instance. America just lost, which is unfortunate, but it's not like we were supposed to win. I mean, soccer's not even our sport, so it's not like we lost at something important. But it is unfortunate because we didn't just lose. I mean, we got it handed to us by Belgium, and especially after the whole stuff with the red card getting overturned and Trump, being involved in that. It's unfortunate that we lost, but well, what are you gonna do? Just gotta let it go, live and let die. But lots of other things too, and talk about the Patriot Front deal, which, I'll just come out and say, and obviously this is probably the wrong position to take on it, but I thought it was cool. I thought the demonstration was cool. I mean, the fact that they were able to accomplish what they did and keep it so professional, so uniform, so clean was, that's something to be. That's an accomplishment. It is. They got in. There's some 400 people for this demonstration. They got in. They got out without anybody getting doxxed. No violence. Nobody getting arrested. Nothing crazy happening. They had choreography prepared. They all fell in line. They did what they were supposed to do. So regardless of how you feel about the actual what their position was, what they were trying to protest or demonstrate. Regardless of what your feelings are on the Patriot Front group, it's an impressive feat that they were able to do it. And again, notice that there were no arrests. There was no violence. There was no burning buildings, looting, anything like that. If Black Lives Matter was able to do their demonstrations or whatever protests in the same way Patriot Front did, there would be so much less to criticize from BLM. If all the issue was with BLM was their heinous ideology, their hateful ideals and beliefs, and that was all there was to hate about BLM, that would be a lot better than them going out and burning cars and looting stores and all the stuff that they do. If they acted like Patriot Front did, which of course the media is not going to treat Patriot Front the way they did BLM. BLM got off the hook time and again. They had the peaceful protests while cars were burning in the background. That was the BLM riots. They were put in the media as these, peaceful protests about black lives, as if that was really the issue. Meanwhile, Patriot Front, they're getting called white nationalists, racists, fascists, all of these things. They're being, put in the media as this embodiment of evil. But their demonstration was entirely peaceful, and it was kind of cool. Okay, it was kind of cool. What they did was definitely an accomplishment for any small movement. The way that they did it, how clean it was, in and out, no issues. It was well put together, all of that. However, that being said, I don't think it was a good idea because I think it just allows for people to take shots at the right, to take shots at the America First movement. Because that's what they're gonna attach Patriot Front to, is kind of like that far right, like what all the pundits are saying, the woke Reich. They're gonna attach it to that America First movement, which is unfortunate because that just gives them more ammunition. When you show up literally in army military gear and white coverings with upside down American flags, and then American flags with the fascies, of course, you're putting out a particular image, and what you're doing, which is odd because from my understanding, Patriot Front is just really just a nationalistic, patriotic, pro-America type movement. I don't really think they're fascists. They do charitable work. They're involved in a lot of good things within the community, environmental stuff. They seem like a good organization that really, and I'm sure a lot of the members really love America, but they're putting forth this image of fascist, white nationalist type thing. And so all they're doing is just allowing for the left and for the media to take more shots at the America First, the broader far right America First movement, which I find unfortunate. And so I think it would have been better to just not do the demonstration at all. But again, I do think it's worth noting that it compare this to what the left does. Compare a Patriot Front demonstration to a BLM riot, or to a Antifa riot, or even to just the Muslim parades. through the streets in New York and in Dearborn, Michigan, and in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Like, the contrast is so stark. Like, the Patriot Front America people, like the white people, honestly, they're peaceful, they don't get in trouble, but like the blacks and the Muslims and all of those crazy liberal, libtard, leftist types, they burn cars and loot buildings. Like, there's just no comparison, okay? The right does not take part in demonstrations anywhere near the way that leftists do. But all of that to say, and I spent already too much time on that, that's not the topic today. I must address the thing, and the thing that will for sure get me in the most trouble, even with my friends and family, because nobody likes it when I bring this stuff up. But, like, I can't help it if it's just what's in the news. But we got to talk about what Karoline Leavitt said about Gen Z. So we'll get to it as soon as we play the little intro. So you're watching or listening to Stand Fast. So over this last weekend, as people were celebrating America's 250th year of independence, Karoline Leavitt went on Fox News, and while many people were celebrating and promoting America's greatness and their Christian heritage, and I even preached a message on Sunday at my local church about America's Christian heritage, which you can listen on Spotify, YouTube, or on Solid Rock Bible Church's website. You know, lots of people were making that the focus, making America the focus. Of course, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, 28-year-old woman who for some reason is allowed to be the spokesperson for the Trump administration in the White House, she goes on Fox News and instead of talking about America's greatness or any kind of hopeful message for the future, she decides to dog on her own generation, to dog on my generation. And so it's something we hear time and again from the boomers, from Gen X, from the older people, that they just simply look at our generation as completely degenerate and hopeless, and that we are just a bunch of bums who will not pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're just a bunch of crazy blue-haired freaks, and that we're all gay. That's the way they look at us, and we hear this often enough. And it gets demoralizing, and I don't think it's very helpful for the Republican Party to be promoting these views, but here is Karoline Leavitt talking about Generation Z.
Some of these kids, and I call them kids because they're in their 20s, and they've never had real jobs, and they're complaining things are expensive. Yes, things are expensive when you don't have a real job.
That's right.
Do you think that's getting traction, complaining?
Unfortunately, I do, because this generation, my generation, I hate to say it, Gen Z and those younger than me have been raised with just silver spoons in their mouth, just getting everything handed to them. That's not the values this country was built on. It was built on meritocracy and hard work, pulling up your sleeves, pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, and achieving the American dream. And we need to protect it with all we got.
Is it laziness?
A little bit.
Is it because the professors said the country's corrupt, it's evil, and we just need to shake them down and hand money out?
It's laziness, and it's the liberal indoctrination. You bring up a great point about our education system. However, I will say a silver lining, so many parents that I talk to across the country are homeschooling, are turning to private education, are turning towards Christian schools across the country because they don't want their children being taught these communist and liberal ideas slammed down their throat. It's why President Trump in the White House has advocated so strongly for school choice across the country. We want kids to be taught to love our country. They should. It is the greatest country in the history of the world.
All right. I say, if they misbehave, just make all these young kids join the army, right?
So I agree that we want kids to love our country, and I think the public education system, I think college education, universities are pushing indoctrination or hoisting terrible, heinous, really abominable beliefs onto the youth, onto young people. But why? Like, why do you feel the need to denigrate Generation Z? Like, why is it that we want We don't. But why is it that the White House press secretary felt the need to get on Fox News and talk about how lazy and socialist that the young people are, and that, you know what, things are expensive, but so what? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, toughen up, kid. Like, this is what the country was built on. Your grandfathers obviously didn't have it that easy. Like, it's not like they grew up in the most economically prosperous time in our nation's history. It's not like the boomers were handed a actual silver spoon by their parents who actually did work hard, who actually made it through 2 world wars, through the Great Depression. It's not like it was the boomers who were given the most economic prosperity, the cheapest living, the best situation of any generation in American history. No, it's not like any of that's true. It's you just need to be tougher. You need to work harder. Like, that's the message to Generation Z. And I understand to a degree where it comes from, because you look at my generation, you look at young people, and of course, there's moral filthiness throughout all of it. Of course, there's abortion's prevalent, addiction's prevalent, sexual promiscuity is prevalent. Like, all that stuff's true, 100%. But at the end of the day, all of that is a result of failures of past generations. Like, things don't just happen in a vacuum. It's not like Generation Z was just randomly this super liberal and addicted and promiscuous generation that just came out of nowhere. No, like, we are the result of bad habits, bad decisions from the boomers, from Gen X, all the way passed down to us. Like, children are very much shaped by their parents. Like, you can say that public education systems indoctrinating them, but at the end of the day, it's the parents who made the decision to either send them to that school or the decision to not invest in them enough to make sure that they didn't turn out to be a leftist. But even in spite of all of that, in spite of all the flaws of Generation Z, and how I really do think that is just a product of failures of other generations, not to say we don't hold responsibility. I mean, we're still responsible for our actions. Every man will give account to God for himself. But at the end of the day, not only is it that our generation is, honestly, morally pretty decrepit, the truth is also that there's a lot of people in Generation Z, and young heterosexual white men in particular, that really do want to start a family, that really do want to work hard, that actually don't like the leftist, socialist, democratic stuff. And you are now denigrating them. You are ostracizing them from the movement. Like, how are you expecting to win? How are the Republicans expecting to win if they are just going to attack and denigrate the most important voter base they have? Like, the promise was in 2016 and 2020 and 2024 from Trump, the promise was that the ones who were being marginalized, the people that were being kind of attacked and discriminated against, young heterosexual white males, those people who are being attacked by the left, who are being attacked by schools, who are being attacked by corporations, and by society at large, they were going to be fought for. That Trump was going to be their guy. That we were going to be put in a position where it wouldn't matter anymore that we were white heterosexual men, but that we would actually be allowed to work and be given the opportunity to have the jobs that we earn, to earn the living that we deserve, that we were owed by virtue of our inheritance in this nation. That was the promise, and now the whole movement's flipped to where all of a sudden, like, everybody's against specifically young white men in this country. And what they do is they pull these examples of, like, the black gay libtards in New York at the Mamdani rallies, and they go, look at all these Generation Z kids who are just socialists, and that's why the DSA is gaining so much traction. And it's like that's not even true, okay? Like, the people who are supporting the DSA are foreigners, boomers, and yeah, sure, gay black Gen Z kids. Like, yeah, but that's like such a minority of the generation. When you're talking about Generation Z, there are still a lot of young people like me who are just conservative, Christian, young, white men who all we want to do is get married and start a family and be given the opportunity to build a life and a stable career in a safe environment in this country. And now we're being told by our own party, by our own movement, that, you know what, actually, we're just lazy. Actually, the reason everything's so expensive, the economy's bust, and the reason there's so many illegal immigrants here is because we're just too lazy, and we're not willing to beat out the illegal immigrants who are being offered the jobs at a higher rate. We're not willing to just work harder to buy the house that's like 10 times more expensive now than it was 50 years ago. Like, it's all on us all of a sudden. But regardless of how you feel about Generation Z, why would you ostracize them? Like, of course I understand all the people who watch Fox News are the idiot boomers who just take in the slop and whatever they say is just absolute truth in their minds. I understand that you're trying to appeal to a certain block, but at the end of the day, like, this stuff gets put on social media, and then you're going to have to answer to the young people that are now like, hey, what the heck's going on? We wanted to be conservative. We wanted to get involved in this whole Republican Party thing and the whole MAGA and stuff. And all of a sudden it's like they don't even care about us anymore. And people wonder why there's such this push among young white Christian men towards being in the America First movement, or like the woke Reich, as all the pundits like to say, or the retard right, like John Doyle says. Like they wonder why there's a push towards all of that. They wonder why all these young white Christian men are moving away from Trump and from the Republican Party and are becoming either completely disengaged from politics or moving to figures like Nick Fuentes. They wonder why that's happening. Well, it's because the Republican Party, one, completely failed to deliver on their promises for the last, 40 years. And number two, now that they actually are saying, hey, we're actually going to reform things and we're going to get rid of the establishment and the rhinos and we're going to have this America First MAGA movement. Actually, that movement is also against the young white Christian men. Like, it makes no sense, because at the end of the day, that's going to be the base that carries forth the Republican Party. So if you're just going to get rid of that voting block, your party's going to die, because the Democratic Socialists have no issue. The Democratic Party broadly has no issue getting voters because they're just importing them from the southern border. And of course, Republicans seem content to just continue to allow that to happen. Maybe if we shut down the border, okay, well, we're still hitting the cap with H-1Bs every year. So we're still taking in all of the Indians, all of the Chinese who are all going to vote Democrat. They're all going to vote socialist because they're coming from environments where meritocracy is like a foreign concept to them. They don't come from the free market economy that we have here in America. They come from places where socialism is just kind of the accepted thing, and they want the government handouts. Like that's the base. That's the base for the Democrats. And it's fair to attack that base, but the fact of the matter is most of those people shouldn't be here anyway. Those aren't like the real Americans. But when you get on Fox News and talk about like real American Generation Z, like the people like in rural, Kansas, the young white Christian heterosexual males in rural Kansas or the Midwest or even in the South, when you start talking about them and just saying that, well, at the end of the day, they're just lazy. Like, they can't do it. Like, they haven't had a real job. They're in their 20s, and of course everything's expensive. We don't have a real job. Like, oh, no, yeah, no, duh. Like, this is a message for Kansans. You may have heard talk of an upcoming vote to amend the Kansas state constitution. Now, the murderous horde of pro-choice baby killers would like to convince you that this amendment politicizes the Kansas Supreme Court. However, this is not the case. In fact, the Kansas Supreme Court right now is largely run by the bureaucrats who appoint the justices. Kansans have no say in who presides over the all-too-powerful Kansas Supreme Court. It is through this bureaucracy that progressives have managed to keep Kansas abortion-friendly and make our great state really the abortion capital of the Middle West. However, this coming election, we have a chance to take control of our judicial system. Voting yes to this amendment will allow Kansas voters to determine who gets elected to the Kansas Supreme Court. The people of the free state of Kansas deserve better than bureaucracy. So vote yes on August 4th. Like, that's the thing. At the end of the day, all Karoline Leavitt is doing here, which is really rich coming from her. All she's doing here is denigrating, ostracizing the most important voting base for the Republican Party. But it's really rich coming from her, who grew up in a very well-off family, lived off of her daddy's money, went to college, and as a woman, for whatever reason, got a bachelor's degree in economics, had a failed congressional run, I think, and then after that, got hired on as the White House press secretary, and now, sitting at the ripe old age of 28, is married to somebody well over double her age. She's married to a 61-year-old man. She's 28. And she's going to get on Fox News and talk about the issues of Generation Z as if, like, she can relate, as if she's, like, one of the good ones, one of the good ones who actually worked hard and actually, went through the meritocracy and got to where she is. No, it's like she got the silver spoon, and now she presides to point the blame at others, the people who actually didn't have daddy's money, the people who actually weren't stupid enough to go get economic degrees in college, and who didn't marry somebody twice their age who was multi-millionaire. Like, She's going to point the finger at us as if like we're the problem. And all this is doing is just splintering the Republican Party, and then there's just going to be no reason. There's going to be no excuse for when they lose in the midterms or when they lose in 2028, because the Democratic Socialists, their plan is just way more efficacious at this point. Importing people is a much better idea than attacking the people that you actually want to vote for you. So we can't be surprised when the socialists take over if the Republicans aren't going to actually support the people that they want voting for them. Okay? Like, there's been a failure on both parties. Like, the reason why there's a shift away from both parties is because young people are realizing, hey, everything sucks right now. Like, the economy's bust. Everything's expensive. Okay? We're super polarized. Society's super gay right now. Young people are seeing this, and there's two reactions. For the gay people and the foreigners, they're like, hey, we want socialism. Just give us free stuff so we don't have to worry about it ourselves. And then the other people are like, hey, we actually need like radical reform. We're going to support people who you might call fascists, you might call neo-Nazis, but at the end of the day, they're actually people who have an agenda for radical reform. Like the extremes on both parties are being pressed toward because of the failures of the parties themselves. And so there's nobody to blame but the idiots at Fox News, the Trump administration, the rhinos, the broader conservative establishment. There's nobody to blame but those people. Like, think about just this last week. Okay, we had the Supreme Court ruling on Tuesday, a horrible misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment upholding birthright citizenship. Okay, what excuse is there for Trump not accomplishing what he said he would do? Trump said he was going to end birthright citizenship. We have the presidency. Republicans have the Senate. Republicans have the Congress. They're supposed to have the Supreme Court. What excuse is there for not accomplishing things? You can't even get the SAVE Act passed, something that 80% of Americans agree on. You can't get that passed through Congress, and you have a majority in every step of the way, and you still can't do things. Like, of course people don't want to vote for you anymore. Why should I, as a young white heterosexual Christian man, why should I support the Republican Party when they have proven time and again that they're actually not going to do anything for me? What point is there to me voting? I should just buckle down and do what I can to make sure that I survive. Like, that's a much more pressing matter in my mind than whether or not J.D. Vance gets elected or Marco Rubio gets elected to the White House in 2028. Like, I already know they're not going to do anything because they've had power and they can't do anything with the power. So why would I support them getting more power? At the end of the day, there's just been an epic failure on the side of the Republicans. And you're seeing this in the shift in Generation Z and young people. And then all the while, we're getting called out like we're the bad guys. And again, I'm not saying that there's not issues. There's obviously issues with Generation Z, okay? Like 23% of young people identify with a homosexual lifestyle. That's disgusting. That's degenerate. However, all of that was made possible because of the reforms made in the 50s, 60s, 70s by the boomers. It's fair to say that there was terrible promiscuity, that sexual degeneracy is at an all-time high in Generation Z. That's all fair. I know this. Even among my friends, I know this. Like, the average young person will graduate high school without their virginity. That's just a fact. The statistics support the idea that Generation Z is morally degenerate. That's fair. But again, all of that is just the consequences of past generations making terrible decisions. Like, again, things don't happen in a vacuum. Where were the parents? Where were the parents of these kids? Where was Gen X? Where were the boomers when they were raising their millennial kids, when they were raising their Gen Z kids? Where were they in trying to make sure that they adopted the heritage of America, make sure that they loved their country, to make sure that they accepted the Christian morality? Where were they? Like, you can't just blame Gen Z for everything wrong with their generation. Every older generation thinks the young people are lazy. Okay, the silent generation, the greatest generation, they thought boomers and Gen X were lazy. They thought they were bums. They thought they were morally decrepit. Like, it's just the way it always goes. The older generation always looks at the young people and thinks that they're lazy and that they're just way worse off and not nearly the type of men that we had in my day. Like, that's always the sentiment. Like, that's not a new thing. But what is a new thing is the Republican Party deciding that they're actually going to... Actually, that's not even new. What am I saying? There is no new thing. There's no new thing under the sun. The Republican Party choosing to just side with the boomers is something that they've just done forever. They side with the people that are kill their party, literally, because everyone will die, while ostracizing their most important voter base. But, we're at the end of the show. Now, I'll get off my high horse and we'll conclude. But thanks for listening or watching. Stand fast.
Sun is falling. Speed.